As the sun began to set, casting elongated shadows on the tranquil suburb, the familiar sound of Austin's car engine echoed through the driveway. I had been spending the summer with my daughter, Annie, and her husband, finding myself increasingly captivated by Austin in ways I shouldn't. It was a troubling realization, one I tried to suppress, yet his quiet confidence and demeanor made it hard to ignore. In the kitchen, I stirred the beef bourguignon I had meticulously prepared throughout the afternoon, letting its rich aroma fill the space, a welcome distraction from the internal tension I felt. The front door opened and I turned to greet Austin with a smile. "Hey, you're back," I said, trying to keep things light. "I decided to make your favorite beef bourguignon." He paused at the doorway, raising an eyebrow. "Annie's favorite, you mean," he corrected gently, though a hint of unease lingered in his voice. I waved it off, returning my focus to the stove. "Same thing, right? You both love it." From the corner of my eye, I noticed the tension in his shoulders and his avoidance of my gaze. I knew I unsettled him, and a part of me relished the subtle influence I had over him. It wasn't about making him uneasy. I simply wanted him to see me, to acknowledge the unspoken connection simmering beneath the surface. "Where's Annie?" he asked, setting his briefcase on the counter. His tone was steady, yet tinged with tension. "She's working late tonight," I replied, concentrating on the stew as if it demanded my full attention. "Some big project deadline." "It'll just be the two of us for dinner." The room fell silent, save for the gentle bubbling of the stew. I sensed his eyes on me, and a mix of excitement and guilt stirred within. I knew I was treading on dangerous ground, yet I couldn't resist. There was something about Austin that pulled me in, something that made me test the limits, to see how far I could push until he acknowledged the spark between us. Over the following weeks, I became more persistent, making subtle remarks about his appearance, always seeking moments to be near him. I noticed the effect I had on him, the way he tensed when I was close, the way his eyes lingered on me when he thought I wasn't watching. It was a risky game, one that could have serious repercussions, but I couldn't seem to stop myself. One evening, I found him in the living room, a book in hand. With Annie out with friends, I seized the chance to prepare dinner for just the two of us. I handed him a glass of wine, letting my fingers linger against his for a moment longer than necessary. I sat beside him on the couch, close. "Austin," I said softly, deliberately. "I feel like you're holding back." "Why is that?" He took a sip of wine, buying himself time. I saw the conflict in his eyes, the internal struggle. "What makes you think I'm holding back, Mom?" he asked, his voice carefully measured. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. Us. You know there's something here, Austin. You can't deny it indefinitely." He turned away, his jaw tightening. "Mom, I don't know what you want me to say." I reached out to him. "I just want you to be honest with yourself, with me." He took a deep breath, meeting my gaze briefly before looking away again. "I can't do this, Mom," he said, his tone firm yet gentle. "I'm sorry." I looked at him, disappointment and determination at odds within me. "You can't run forever, Austin," I said softly. "Sooner or later, you'll need to confront what you truly desire." As he rose and placed the wine glass on the table, I recognized that a boundary had been crossed, yet retreat was no longer an option. The tangled web of emotions had ensnared me, and I was resolute in seeing it through, regardless of the consequences. I was aware of the pressure I exerted on him, but my desire was relentless. I was determined to make him realize he wanted me as much as I wanted him. Venturing onto such precarious terrain was risky, but the magnetic pull toward Austin was impossible to ignore. I was deeply entangled, and despite knowing I should withdraw, the undeniable force drawing us together was irresistible. One afternoon, Austin was working from home, his laptop perched on the kitchen table. I lounged by the pool, basking in the sun, stealing glances at him through the window. His brow was furrowed in concentration, tension evident in his shoulders. I waved, inviting him to join me. After a moment's hesitation, he closed his laptop and stepped outside. He settled on the lounger beside mine, and I reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "You seem tense," I said with genuine concern. "Let me help you relax." I moved behind him, my hands finding their way to his shoulders, kneading gently as the tension ebbed away. It was an innocent gesture on the surface, yet I knew it was far from that. Feeling the strength in his muscles thrilled me. "Feels better, doesn't it?" I asked softly, leaning in. He nodded silently, eyes closed. I could see the internal struggle etched on his face, his conflicting emotions, but I knew patience was key. I needed to let him come to me. "Caroline," he said abruptly, his voice rough. He pulled away, his heart pounding. "We can't do this. Not here, not now." I smiled, concealing my frustration. "Then where, Austin? When?" He stood, his body trembling with a mix of apprehension and fear. "I don't know, I just need time to think." I nodded, watching as he walked away. I knew I was pushing him, but also sensed he felt the same irresistible attraction. It was only a matter of time before he acknowledged it. One evening, with Annie away for a work conference, the house was silent, heavy with unspoken words. I found Austin in the living room, attempting to lose himself in a book. I sat beside him, wearing a loose silk robe that flattered me. I could feel his gaze, the tension in the air. "Austin," I said, my voice gentle yet assertive. "Look at me." He hesitated, then obliged. I could see his struggle to maintain composure. I leaned in closer, feeling the undeniable connection. "Mom," he whispered hoarsely. "We can't." I silenced him with a tender touch. "We can do whatever we want, Austin," I said. "It's just us here. No one needs to know." I saw the turmoil in his eyes, the tug of war between his desires and loyalty to Annie. I was asking him to cross a line, to betray the woman he loved, yet I knew he was drawn to me in a way he couldn't deny. I stood, extending my hand. He hesitated, then took it, allowing me to lead him upstairs. My heart raced with anticipation and dread, a whirlwind of emotions nearly overwhelming me. I knew it was wrong, yet I couldn't deny my feelings. All I knew was my desire for him. Afterward, as we lay side by side in the dimly lit room, my emotions were a turbulent mix. Guilt weighed heavily, oppressive, for what I'd done, and the betrayal I'd orchestrated. Fear crept in too, fear of the repercussions, the pain we might cause Annie, and the inevitable consequences. Yet, there was an overwhelming sense of inevitability, as if this moment was destined, as if we were helpless against the magnetic force pulling us together. I glanced at Austin, his face a mirror of my own turbulent emotions. I saw the guilt, the fear, the uncertainty, but also the longing, the undeniable bond we shared. "Don't regret this, Austin," I said solemnly. "We can't change the past, we can only move forward." He nodded, his hand reaching for mine. In that instant, I understood that we were in this together, for better or worse. We were in too deep, with no way to turn back. Thus began our clandestine relationship, a thrilling yet risky dance. We were always conscious of Annie, perpetually aware of the stakes. We carved out moments together when possible, ever careful to uphold the facade of normality. It was a precarious game, one that could unravel at any moment. Despite the complexities, despite the guilt and fear, I couldn't ignore the truth. For the first time in a long while, I was genuinely happy. I had discovered something with Austin that I never anticipated, something I was determined to cling to, regardless of the cost. Yet even as I cherished our newfound connection, I was acutely aware of the ticking clock. I knew that eventually, we would have to confront the repercussions of our choices. I just didn't know when or how it would all inevitably collapse.